So UFC 229 was last night. Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov for the UFC 155-pound lightweight title. It was a classic grappler versus striker matchup. Um, in the first round and early on in the fight, Khabib was able to take Conor down and pretty much impose his will for the first couple rounds.
He had that when he came out heavy. He had that one takedown where he just lifted him up and it was like,
Yep.
It was like
Yep.
watching a UFC video game.
And then, once he was on the ground, Conor didn't really have an answer for him at all. Early on, he turtled up really well. He didn't need a lot of big shots, but
You couldn't get out of it. He never proved really an ability to get out of it, except for in the third round, a little bit, I think.
yeah,
Just tying his legs up.
he could
Yeah, exactly.
he could repeatedly get against the cage and stand up, but beyond that, he never had any output really. I think he maybe caught Khabib with a few strikes from the outside, but that was really it. Khabib was never really in any trouble, and Khabib was even comfortable enough to strike in the third round.
Yeah.
He caught him at one point. He caught him at one point with a huge overhand right, and stumbled him. They were saying that I think it was John Kavanaugh at some point was saying Conor McGregor was never dropped in the UFC. They don't count the when he was stumbled against Diaz. They don't count that as a knockdown, I guess.
What?
So for whatever reason, he was never knocked down. But
What about last night?
I think they counted it as a knockdown because he went down to one knee.
yeah.
Because he went down to one knee.
Connor was also pretty dirty in the beginning of that fight.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Grabbing
So
the fence with his toes.
To me, that's Herb Dean's fault, completely, because, well, when Herb Dean was announced for this fight, a lot of people kind of rolled their eyes because Herb Dean, in the past few weeks, has been involved in a lot of controversial calls. There was a CB Dalloway fight where I believe he just let the fight go on for an extra minute after CB Dalloway was flatlined, clearly done, had his eyes rolled back, so a lot of people worried that he was either going to call the fight off too early or let it go too long just for fear of being criticized. And that's pretty much what happened, in the sense that, when Conor was grabbing Khabib's gloves, Khabib kept freaking out about it, and he said it was illegal, but beyond that, he didn't really do anything. He didn't warn him.
Yeah.
When Conor put his toes in the cage, he warned him about it and never ripped his feet out of the fucking
He also
out of the cage.
kneed him in the head while he was down. You can't knee it down.
Yeah, landed an illegal knee.
Nothing was said about that.
Didn't say anything.
Was standing
Yeah.
right there looking at him.
So, at what point is it acceptable to start taking points away? After a warning, or do you think there even needs to be a warning for all these fouls?
I think you almost have to take it case by case, because I feel sometimes there's illegal things that can really hurt someone,
eye pokes and shit like that.
Yeah,
or low
or
blows even, or
something toe. If you're locking your toes in the cage, maybe warn them then. But if you're throwing knees, or, something that can seriously hurt someone, that I think that's when you should.
And he didn't even get warnings.
Yeah, no,
especially when
nothing.
you're doing several illegal things at once. We're not talking about just doing one thing. We're talking about several different things, and you're not getting warnings.
I think he might have said something about the glove grabbing, but didn't stop it. And then
that was blatant too.
Yeah,
Dominic Cruz called that a veteran move. I don't like
which
that.
no,
But,
which
I mean,
which it is though. It is.
Yeah.
It is in the sense that they're all things you can get away with. Even grabbing shorts, any of that, you can get away with this stuff. It's like holding in the NFL.
Yeah.
It happens every fight, but you can't do it for 3-4 seconds in a row. You can do it for a split second. Maybe grab the cage, grab the fence accidentally. You see it all the time. But you can't have your fucking toes locked in the fucking cage.
No, yeah.
I think he was
knows that.
he was fighting off an arm submission at that point too.
Yeah,
It could have ended there. Could have, not necessarily, but could have. And yeah. So I think everybody knew what would happen if Conor faced a wrestler like that. There was always the hope that he could land a big left hand and put Khabib out, but wrestler versus striker, this is really what happens most of the time.
And honestly too, I feel like Khabib really upped his striking game.
Yeah.
Like that's like he. I mean, you could look. I mean, he knocked him down.
Yeah.
I mean, he definitely got caught. Like Connor definitely caught him a few times, but he caught Connor a few times standing up.
Yeah.
Too.
People made a lot about that, about the level changes and about like, so Khabib would like fake shoot for a takedown, and Conor would go to fully stuff the takedown, and then he'd leave himself wide open for hooks. You know, he got caught a few times. That being said, Conor did win round 3 on all the judges' scorecards. Everybody gave it 10-9 Conor for round 3. It was 10-9 Khabib round 1. Everybody had it. 10-8 Khabib round 2 from all the ground and pound.
Yeah, he went to town in round 2.
Everybody had that. And then 10-9s across the board. And then, fourth round didn't get scored because Khabib finished it. So, right after the fight, as I'm sure everybody saw, Khabib jumped the cage, and there was a little scuffle outside of the cage, and then there was a scuffle inside of the cage. So Conor taps to the neck crank. Khabib holds on after, and Herb tells him to stop, and then he stands up and screams at Conor. Khabib turns, screams at Conor's team for disrespect, cheating, throwing the dolly, the religion, the bus, all that stuff. He throws his mouthguard across the octagon. Dylan Dennis is outside the cage telling Khabib to bring it and making like a come on hand gesture. Khabib hops the guardrail, gets past security. When I say the guardrail, I mean the cage. He gets on like the outside of the octagon, that little platform. He runs and frog splashes onto Dylan Dennis. He's surrounded by all of Team McGregor. He's throwing shots at Dennis. Dennis threw a few shots at him. So Khabib's team rushes to get to him, starts climbing the cage. Conor goes to climb the cage, but like he gets grabbed by security. Like they grab his leg, he can't get over the cage, but he swings at Khabib's team. He sees the dude with like Khabib's hat, which turns out to be Khabib's cousin. So he sees the dude with the hat. He takes a swing at him. The guy with the hat turns and throws it at Conor. Now, another teammate of Khabib's jumps into the cage and squares off with Conor, and the two are exchanging shots like face to face before he's dragged away. Security's at him. So another teammate of Khabib's jumps in the cage from behind Conor, hits Conor from behind, and then everyone at that point was focused on Khabib outside the cage, and now the focus turns to everybody inside the cage and all the action inside the cage. And after Conor gets sucker punched, security grabs everybody. Everybody's freaking out inside the octagon. Khabib even comes back inside the octagon at that point.
Why did they let him come back in the octagon is the real question.
See, I don't know. Now, it's one of those things where he probably should have been arrested right there for assault. And in a lot of other places he would have been. But, I mean, here our laws are the way, like, someone has to press charges for assault, right? I mean, in this case, like, it seems as though someone would need to press charges against Khabib specifically because the police and the security didn't automatically arrest him, and since they didn't there, like...
Yeah, well, I mean, you could even look at other sporting, like, look at the Ron Artest thing with basketball. Like, he went into the crowd and started attacking fans. They didn't arrest him.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of it's just celebrity status, right? Like, I mean, at that point, like...
Sports, like...
When Conor did all his shit, he didn't get arrested. Like, yes, he got arrested maybe ultimately after, but not right away. I mean, in almost every case, he fled or was gone and like didn't get arrested or charged with things till after. And I'm sure this is the same way. I'm sure like he might get charged by somebody in the crowd that maybe got injured that we don't know about, or like maybe
they take visas away from.
All right, so at this point, nobody really knows because I don't think there's any charges right now. But if he gets suspended by the athletic commission for a lengthy amount of time, maybe anything like 6 months to a year, then they might look at that and take that away. But when Conor went through all of his, his stuff in March with the dolly throwing incident, he didn't get his work visa taken away. And I don't know if this is any worse than that. Because that could have been like assault with a deadly weapon and like all that. And like Khabib, he did charge the crowd or whatever, but like it there weren't really any.
He wasn't going for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, he was going. And the person he was going after happened to be a trained fighter. It would have been a little different if he went after Ali Abdelaziz, or well, like that's his. That's Khabib's manager. That wouldn't have made any sense. But you know what I mean? Like if he would have went after like a manager or somebody not involved, like that would be a little different. But since it was a pro fighter, like. And yes, he should still probably be charged with assault. But since they're not pressing charges, what can you do? And from the UFC's perspective, I don't know if they have any incentive to punish Khabib because like that they just be costing themselves money at that point. And
that's your top dog right now.
Yeah.
Fighting wise, anyway. Obviously he beat Conor McGregor. So
yeah,
that's
yep. So Dana White at the post-fight press conference said that they're going to see what Nevada does. They said they had to turn over all their tapes to Nevada. And
withholding their purses, right?
Well, see, originally they were going to withhold Conor's purse and Khabib's purse. But now they're only withholding Khabib's purse. Conor was paid in full. They said they reviewed the incident and they determined that Conor wasn't at fault. Now, this was before, like, the big shift in public opinion that Conor like swung at Khabib's people and like provoked that because originally
nobody saw that.
Originally it was just thought Conor was kind of minding his own business in the cage and got jumped. Which I mean, like,
he did get jumped. But
he had already swung at those guys. So I guess really now we just have to see what the commission does, and that's what Dana was saying. I mean.
What about Conor's tweet after? That's interesting. After all that goes down, that's what he tweets.
That he says he's coming back.
Or that he's like, good knock, can't wait for round 2 or whatever.
Well, so that's something else. Is there was no interest in a rematch after that fight. Absolutely none.
Yeah.
Like,
why would he say that?
Well, see, Khabib dominated Conor. There's no interest in a rematch. But now, a lot of people want to see the rematch because like. There's bad blood. There's still bad blood there.
Chaos at the end.
Yeah. If it was done and they would have shook hands,
that's it.
I think that's it. And Conor maybe goes and fights Nate Diaz, or he fights like the winner of Poirier Diaz or whoever. He fights somebody else, or he fights George or Anderson or somebody. But now
you gotta have the rematch almost.
That's a really If there wasn't enough promotion for this fight, this event alone is enough promotion for the next fight. It almost guarantees that it does like a million more buys at least, right? Like just because of all that, like if something small like the bottle throwing incident for Diaz McGregor can do that, imagine what this could do. And it's almost dangerous because like, are they just gonna keep upping it? Are they gonna use all that footage and this footage? And like, if they do fight, they can't have it in Russia. They'd kill McGregor. Sorry, no. like what are you gonna do? Like,
and Derek Lewis definitely can't go because he was talking all that crap about Putin and Trump.
Derek Lewis is hilarious, but So before the fight, I read that 4 kids are being flown into the fight as part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Make-A-Wish program because they wanted to see McGregor fight live before they, their illnesses got any worse. So imagine that if you're a kid and that's like your final wish to see Conor McGregor fight live, and you go there and you see him fight, and 1, he loses. So there, you know what I mean? Like it's nice that they got to go, but like fuck, that sucks, right? Like their guy lost. But 2. Now they're scared as shit probably because I imagine they're sitting pretty close to the front row because they're flown in there. Maybe not, maybe a couple rows back, but like likely up there. And so now they're like fearful and scared, maybe in danger. I mean, probably not, but maybe they're at risk. And now the whole thing's tainted. Yeah. The whole thing is just completely tainted. I mean, if there was a meet and greet after, maybe it was, maybe it was canned. Yeah, you never know. I mean,
hopefully, I feel if anything like that happened, like hopefully the UFC
would make it right.
Yeah,
yeah.
Give them another. You can come to the next fight, or do all
Yep.
that, or something like that.
And
something at least.
So in the co-main event, we had Anthony Pettis versus Tony Ferguson, and Tony Ferguson came out 6 months after he just had like reconstructive leg surgery. I'm pretty sure he tore his ACL, and he 6 months ago had surgery. Not recovered 6 months ago. Had surgery was cut open and had surgery 6 months ago. He still has a scar on his leg, like a foot gash on his leg, with staple marks. And
look at any other sport. How long does a torn ACL put you out for?
Yeah, a year.
Yeah.
A year before you can even train.
Baseball, you're done for the year.
And
that's a 162 game season.
Pettis said before the fight that of course the leg would be a target because he had his leg worked on before, and he said it wouldn't be right. Like, according to Pettis, mentally you don't quite recover. You're not really sure if you can check leg kicks without hurting yourself seriously.
Yeah.
You're not really sure if you can, use your leg offensively. You're just mentally unsure. And in the first round, Ferguson actually looked like he was moving around pretty bad. Like, it looked like he was very effective, but it didn't look like he was as comfortable as he was prior to the leg injury. But then once he started landing, he opened right up. He started dancing again. He started spinning. He started having, he started attacking. It was beautiful. And he started slicing Pettis up. He definitely won the first round. Then in the second round, Pettis caught him with 2 clean shots and dropped him. Tony did that little gator roll, where he does a little somersault and gets out. It's like that little meme that he's just a weird guy, man. But he does that shit inside the cage, and that's so smart. If you're getting rocked, why would you not just do a roll away? Yeah, why would you not do that? I mean, how often do we see people get rocked and they just go on their back and then just they're prey. They're they're waiting there.
Get out of there.
Yeah, Tony squirmed and he got out, and he got grappled on for a little bit, but he eventually lived and got through it. And he got up and he started ripping to the body. He started cutting Pettis with bows. Anthony actually broke his hand when he rocked Pettis, or when Pettis rocked Ferguson. Anthony broke his hand. So at the end of the second round, he's sitting on the stool, and Duke Rufus, his trainer, says hey, if your hand's broken, I can't send you back out there, man. You're not gonna be yourself. You're not gonna be able to defend yourself. You're not gonna be able to be offensive. You're not gonna be the fighter you need to be to win this fight. And he called the fight. And I definitely think that's the right call. I mean, because Ferguson's nasty. He was cut up. He already had a deep gash on the side of his head. I mean, it was one of the bloodiest fights in UFC history. I mean, probably not the most bloody, but blood is misleading a lot of times, because you know what I mean. Some of the smallest cuts can cause the most blood. But I mean, Ferguson was absolutely slicing him up with elbows and punches.
One
and
that caught him above his right eye when he was on the ground. That elbow.
And at one point there was a halt to the action to check the cut, right? And then
but they found out, because they said they originally thought it might have been above his eye line, but it was in the upper part of his head.
Yep. And then they had to bring in a rag to wipe the blood from Tony's eyes. That's how crazy this shit was. And I mean, Tony got it done. We didn't hear I didn't hear the post-fight promo because we were watching on BT Sport, and they pretty much bleeped out all the audio. But great performance from Tony here. I mean, just 6 months after reconstructive ACL surgery, that's just crazy.
That's amazing.
And he was getting kicked. He was getting kicked, and he was kicking back, and he was still dancing. He's a monster. He's just absolutely incredible. So for Pettis, hopefully, I mean, he can bounce back within the next 6-7 months. I mean, he's probably going to need some time off to recover, but I mean, he looked like the old Anthony Pettis here. This is the Pettis that could win a world title.
Yeah.
Another thing to note is I was under the impression that the Pettis brothers weren't going to fight on the same card anymore because they had fought on the same card in the past. Obviously, this was probably different because it's a Conor McGregor card and you want to be present for it. You want to get the biggest payday possible. And I'm sure that helped both of both of them out very much. But I was under the impression they weren't going to fight on the same card anymore because, like, well, one, if they're in camp and they're both preparing for different opponents, like, it's a lot more difficult, like,
Yeah.
as if they're both
Training-wise.
Yeah. So I guess I don't know. Guess not a good night for Duke Rufus because Sergio lost too. But I mean, Anthony definitely looked good even in a loss here, and I think it was a much needed high level performance from him because
It was a great fight altogether.
for a lot of fights there they thought he was done. I mean, until the Chiesa fight when he submitted him, like the Anthony Pettis fold looked like he'd never come back. But I'm definitely glad to see him back. Next, we had the Dominic Reyes versus OSP fight. So, like, this was a come-down fight from the Derek Lewis knockout the fight before, and like personally, I was ready for the co-main event and main event at that point, and I really this fight was an afterthought. I forgot about it. I really thought it would be on the prelims or something, like I looked at the card ahead of time, but Reyes pressured OSP the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, he never really let him get comfortable. I don't really know what the scorecards look like. I mean, I know Reyes won unanimous decision. Can't really talk.
Yeah, he definitely. I mean, they were talking him up at the end of the fight too, like because that was the light heavyweights, right?
Yep. So
fighting John Jones next for Reyes, maybe.
I mean, honestly, no, because I don't think he's a big enough name, and that's the only thing holding him back. It's not that he couldn't be competitive. It's not that he couldn't win. None of that. It's just like he's not a big enough name. I don't think.
Yeah, not yet.
Jones needs to fight like a Brock Lesnar, Cormier, Stipe, someone Cain Velasquez, someone in that level. I mean, Gustafsson even. You know what I mean? Like someone that level though. But at the end of the third round, Reyes cracks OSP and drops him, and OSP, like his eyes roll in the back of his head. Reyes doesn't do any follow-up shots. He just kind of walks off, but the ref doesn't stop the fight. And the bell goes on to have the bell ring, and the bell rings, and then Reyes won the fight by unanimous decision, so it didn't really change the outcome of anything, but to me, that's a knockout. If the second a fighter can't defend themselves, like I think that should be stopped.
Yeah, like you don't want to, like that's when you literally cannot defend yourself. Whether I don't know, your arms are too tired that you can't put them up over your head, or your eyes are rolled in the back and you're out.
Yeah,
that's
it. Like, and I mean, Reyes could have charged him and landed 4 or 5 more shots on the ground there, maybe. I mean, even at the horn.
It becomes a knockout.
Yeah, even at the horn, but like that wouldn't help anybody out, and like I'm glad he didn't. And
that's good.
And he said at the post-fight press conference, he's like, "Well, that's a fucking knockout. Like I fucking knocked him out, and he did. He definitely finished him. Like to me, that's a knockout. Like I know it won't go on the go down as a knockout officially, but like that's totally a knockout or TKO win." So before that, speaking of TKO stoppages, we had Derek Lewis and Alexander Volkov. So Derek Lewis didn't really do much in this fight. Really until the last minute.
Until he did.
Yeah. I mean he did crack Volkov a few times, and at one point he knocked out his mouth guard. But really the story of the fight was Lewis couldn't really find his range against Volkov. He sat at too much of a distance where Volkov, who's a tall, lengthy guy, could hit him, and Lewis could not retaliate. He had a bunch of body kicks. He had a couple head kicks. He had a lot of punches. I think he broke his orbital bone very early in the fight, and he couldn't take damage comfortably. I mean, I know that sounds stupid, but normally when you take a punch, you don't wilt up and turn your head, and that's what Derek Lewis did. And there were a few times where the fight probably should have been stopped because Volkov was landing clean shots. He was landing clean punches right to Lewis's face, and Lewis would turn around. Like at one point, he fully turned his back to Volkov, and the only reason the fight wasn't stopped is because I believe Herb Dean was the referee. Volkov said something, and Herb mistook that for Volkov saying he poked Lewis in the eye, which didn't happen. It was a clean shot. So the fight wasn't stopped. Where right when Lewis stopped defending himself, that should have been a TKO win for Volkov. The fight shouldn't have even continued. Now, since there was that miscommunication and the language barrier, it was allowed to continue. And Lewis lost the first round, lost the second round, was losing the third round. He knew he had to get a knockout. Final 30, 40 seconds of the fight, whatever it was, he comes and he connects with Volkov's chin and he drops him and he lands ground and pound from hell. He pounds his chest as a signature black beast taunt. And then he laid down like a mermaid and took a nap in the middle of
the. To say he found his range.
Yeah, at the end, yeah.
He did. I like how he came in with it too. Like he came in hard with the left to like his chest or like right underneath.
Yeah.
His, like right here, and then just came over top with the right and just wailed him.
And those instincts, like to finish, like that's crazy. Like he just charged him, and that ground and pound was like, ooh, ground and pound from hell. So Derek Lewis immediately took his pants off after the fight because he said his balls was hot, and Rogan said he understood. Understood.
That's all you say.
I understand, sir. So then Lewis invited himself onto Rogan's podcast to smoke a little weed. He said, and Rogan said, "Sure, anytime, buddy." So we're looking forward to that.
You can't forget about that call he got before the fight from Donald Trump.
Oh yeah, what did he say? He said,
Donald Trump said, called me before the fight and said I gotta beat this Russian because all that shit.
All that shit going on. USA in this hole. Yeah. And so yeah, I mean, Derek Lewis was on the post-fight show on Fox Sports 1. And he really tried to downplay talks of a title shot. And I think he did it in his post-fight interview, too, with Joe Rogan. But he was saying he really doesn't have the cardio to be fighting for a title. And he's not wrong. Like, if he were to fight Cormier, he'd get starched. Yep. If he were to fight, even a John Jones, he'd probably get starched.
Yeah, he's got to... he said in the post-fight interview, he said he's got to work on it. So hopefully he does work on it. So he could be a beast.
Now... He said he told Bisping and Woodley after the fight that so before this fight he only spent 30 minutes in the gym a day.
That's
and I think for this fight he might have spent an hour in the gym a day, but no more. And
you're a professional
Bisping told him that he should Bisping was saying like, I do 2 hour-and-a-half sessions a day and like maybe a run in the morning on top of it, like at minimum, you're a professional fighter. And like, Lewis acknowledged it. Like it's not that he doesn't know. And like, isn't that almost alarming though, that Derek Lewis still finds a way to win, even though like he's not that technical. He's not that technical. He says jiu-jitsu doesn't work on him. Like even yesterday, like Volkov had him in a few positions and he just stands up whenever he wants. Like he just gets up and goes, "Shit don't work on me." Fucking just literally stands up. Like it's great. Like he doesn't give a fuck. And imagine that guy with a skill set.
Yeah,
and like actual training in a gas tank. If he didn't get tired, like. Well, another thing to talk about too is his back problems. In the Francis fight, he locked up and his back was hurting him and he couldn't fight. In the Mark Hunt fight, his back locked up and he lost, and then he retired in the cage after that. Like he eventually came back, but he retired in the cage after that due to his back. The fight before that, his back locked up on him against Travis Brown. He won that fight, but he was in trouble a lot. He almost lost. He came back and won like he usually finds a way to do, but he's really got to get that straightened out. And like, I don't know what the answer is. Like, I don't know if he needs to see, different people. I don't know who's around him. I don't know if he has a management. Like it seems like he runs his own social media game.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so.
Joe Rogan apparently said he's got the.
Oh no, he does. He definitely does. He definitely does. He has like the best meme page. Like, he has crazy things, like people getting run over by cars and then standing up and walking away, people getting robbed at gunpoint and like doing crazy shit, like just like thieves getting caught in the act, shit like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like just funny shit. But like Derek Lewis is just, he's a treat. Like, he's just crazy. Like, I love seeing him. Like, he's just, you always know it's gonna be entertaining. Like meme, like any interview, like any fight, like anything like that. It's just, but I wonder what he needs to do to get like his back fixed. And it seems like he has gut problems still. Like, he can't take a lot of damage to the body. And I don't know if that's something that can be helped, because like Matt Brown, for example, like he's vulnerable to body strikes, and he always has been, and it seems like he always will be. Maybe it's the same thing for Derek Lewis. Not really for his back. Like, I'm sure his back can be fixed in some way, but like maybe his gut issues can't be fixed. Like, that's another thing. Like, I don't know what the right answer is, but he's probably going to fight somebody else in the top 5. But he deserves the scraps of like Brock Lesnar, John Jones, or DC John Jones, or, you know, a very high level fight. Maybe Stipe. Maybe Stipe versus Derek Lewis is the fight to make, and the winner of that is guaranteed the next heavyweight title shot. Maybe that's the right move.
That's not a bad idea. If Derek Lewis can figure himself out.
Yeah.
I guess. Like, I mean, not figure himself out, but just get in that mentality of professional fighter, like eat, sleep, breathe.
Yep.
That's all you do.
Yep. He definitely reminds me of a young Rampage Jackson, though, where like he doesn't have the skill that a lot of these guys have, but he just makes up for it with like heart and will. Yeah. And he just finds a way to win, and it's crazy. It's fun to watch. It's definitely fun to watch. So before that, there was the Michelle Waterson fight with Felice Herrig, and I didn't catch that fight because we were still on the way home from getting food, and the lines were crazy because everyone was trying to get home and watch the fight.
Yeah, I did not see that one either.
But Michelle Harris, Cal Harris, and Michelle Harris. Oh boy, going down a different road with that one. Oh boy. But Michelle Waterson defeated Felice Herrig by unanimous decision. And again, I didn't see the fight, but I heard good things.
Yeah, I did not see. I was watching the Yankee game, I think.
How'd they do?
They won.
What's the series at?
1-1.
That's good. That's good. I'm just going through my notes here to see if there's anything that I missed. I don't think there is, but Bellator's already made a promotional piece out of the Khabib Dylan Dennis fight. They're saying like actual fights take place inside of a cage, and then they like tag Dylan Dennis and like promoted like Catch Bellator, blah 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 on Paramount Network.
What was that fight that recently happened in Bellator? The ref just let the fight go, and that the dude ended up in the hospital the night after because he just got his face pounded in. I watched the video of it. It was literally just had him against the cage, wailing on his face, got him on the ground at one point, wailing on his face there. The dude had to go to the hospital for the night, and now he's like, I think he's suing.
Well,
I'm gonna keep scrolling through Facebook because that's where I saw it, and there was like a backstory on it. It wasn't just the video.
All right, well, we'll try to find that, and in the meantime, if you have any mailbag questions, send them to outofendicott@gmail.com. And yeah, that's the name of the podcast, by the way, Out of Endicott. I don't know if people like it. I don't know how it'll be, but
I like it.
I just well, we're doing it out of Endicott. Hope to eventually be out of Endicott.
If you don't know what Endicott is, that's okay.
Yeah, so out of Endicott. So yeah, send your mailbag questions to outofendicott@gmail.com. And thanks for listening. See you next time.